Welcome to the Voice of San Diego podcast in partnership with News Radio 600 Kogo. I am Scott Lewis, the CEO and editor-in-chief at Voice of San Diego, and she's going to fix the weirdest intersection in San Diego. She's Bella Ross with her sheer influencer power.
Yeah, I'm having a moment, but I never said I was going to fix it.
You did too.
I said somebody else is going to have to do that.
Well, that's our role, right? We just inspire people to fix things.
It's like, somebody should really do this, not me though.
All right,
Definitely not.
We'll get into what that intersection is. He's maybe better at getting information from San Diego Unified School District staff than their superintendent and boss. He's Jakob McWhinney.
How's it going, Scott? Well, somebody has to do it.
Yeah. You got. It's like there's nothing better than when you find things out and the people who are like in charge of the place are like, that's really interesting.
It is, it's second only to when you're interviewing somebody and they say, that is a really good question.
No, that's just a stalling tactic.
Well,
they don't know what to say.
Fair enough. Okay, well.
You're making them nervous, though. Does that make you feel good?
It always feels good. Any small instance in my life where I can feel more powerful than I am, that feels excellent.
The key to asking questions in moments like that is to just shut up. It's really hard to do because your instinct is to fill any empty space, and you just have to hold, and it's really hard. But if you get that, that's like new level unlocked.
It's like question edging or something.
Yeah.
Is that what they're calling it now? We're not doing the pregnant pause anymore.
Both very sexual.
Yes, I guess so.
And she should have sent a wedding invitation to Benito Antonio Martinez Ocasio, otherwise known as the Not Good Bunny.
Not Good Bunny.
Should have done that. Didn't think of that, huh?
I did not think of that, and I'm pretty upset.
You would have been like kind of timed up.
Could you imagine? He would have showed up. Like, we had a fun wedding.
Yeah.
He's a Pisces. He's a romantic. He definitely would have been there.
Yeah, it was cowboy themed. Yeah, he would have showed. Yeah, it would have been good.
Would you have enjoyed that?
I would have left my husband.
Right. Dangerous situation.
Coming up on the show this week, we've got some startling stats on how empty San Diego Unified School District schools are. That's what we were just talking about. Another chapter in the enrollment crisis that they refuse to discuss. And the Republican Party in San Diego used to have big meetings and all kinds of influence. Now, not so much, and they're starting to talk about it. And finally, the guy who touched off chaos in Minnesota with his video alleging widespread fraud came to San Diego. So what do we know about what he actually found there and what he did not find as we see what he's going to put out?
So you lied. You lied to us.
I did not lie.
Or you set it up in a way.
I didn't. I'm not perfect. I'm not omniscient.
You were wrong.
I think we need Scott Lewis, CEO and editor-in-chief, to issue a correction.
All right.
Exactly.
Mea culpa, correction. Green Day did not actually appear with Bad Bunny in the Super Bowl halftime show.
Yes. And that is a relief. I still do not understand how that would have worked.
I really would have liked to have known how they would have bridged that gap, though.
Dude, Green Day with a little salsa hip flair would have been awesome.
I mean, Lady Gaga's song was
it.
Amazing. I need that version of that song.
Yeah.
Like somewhere.
So I think just a couple. So there was all this like stupid talk about it. And I think there's like a big Streisand effect that happened here. And the Streisand effect is when you say like something's bad and don't look at it, don't read it, hide it or whatever, it just draws more attention to that thing, right? And so if the president and other people's attention was to draw more attention to Bad Bunny, he achieved that. So there's that. And I think the other thing that I cannot stop thinking about is a lot of people were like, I don't understand. There was a first reaction to the Bad Bunny thing was like, I don't understand the lyrics. And so I don't understand what he's saying. And I think what's crazy about that is I've understood maybe 15% of all lyrics to any English song that I listen to. I don't understand lyrics ever. I never understand them. I have to look up the word. Sometimes I'll have the words that I think they are for decades, and then I'll realize what they're actually saying, and I was like, wow, that's incredible.
You've been singing the wrong thing all along.
Yeah.
And they act like Kid Rock enunciates well.
Yeah.
Come on.
But there is I was picturing my old long lost racist uncle, and I was picturing like what he would have how he would have reacted to this.
Yeah.
And I think he would have kind of had fun with it. Like he always had this like jocular racism. Like it was just like bigotry, but like kind of funny. And I didn't realize it was like bad until like long time after hanging out with him for a long time.
It's the kind of like racism where like, no, they're just telling jokes, but then that's like the only way that they're funny.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
You're like, actually, no, maybe you're just racist.
And I think there's like a whole different reality where like Trump and everybody could have been like kind of into it and brought like said, look, yeah, because they keep talking about conquest, right? They just invaded Venezuela. They want Greenland. They want to control the entire hemisphere. Well, with that comes some Latinos, dude. Like you should just embrace, like, yeah, we got Latinos in our world. We're cruising.
Right.
Can you imagine Trump inviting Bad Bunny to Trump Tower for a taco bowl or something?
Yeah, I think he could have easily turned it into something. He could have still been all like, whatever he is about enforcement and the fascist curious that he is, he could have still had that, and he could have embraced this whole thing. It's just like over and over and over again, he chooses like this path of like fighting, and I don't know. Like I guess he just doesn't know better.
I mean, there are like plenty of Latinos who voted for Trump, right, and who still continue to support him, and like if he had said, "Oh yeah, okay, Bad Bunny, let's go," like did one of his little funny dances.
Yeah, if he did one of his funny dances up there, like they would like 30% of the people upset about him right now would have been like, "Well, this guy's awesome."
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't care if you don't understand the lyrics. Like,
the vibe was really
fun.
good. Yeah,
It's a great vibe. I actually intentionally listened to the album for the first time yesterday.
It's so good.
As part of my research for this episode.
Yeah.
And I can confirm that it's good.
Yeah, it's
very. If anybody was wondering.
It's like weirdly so sad. The whole thing is like it's all fun and happy, and then when you like understand it, it's super sad, right?
I saw someone say something on Instagram. They were like, only Bad Bunny could take like our generational traumas and like sadness of losing someone and not having them with you anymore and make it a fun song to dance to. But like that also kind of captures this like Latino experience where you don't really talk about those things that hurt with your family. Mm-hmm. Like you try to make light of them. So it's just like fascinating. His album is great.
And I think we'll be like as a gringo who spent a lot of time in Latin America, like it's hard to fit in. Like you're not going to fit in like as a guy like me. But like when you like love and you're part and like you participate in the culture and you're just like into it, it was really cool to have that ending where he lists every country, in the hemisphere.
Canada.
Yeah, and then and to be part of that, like we should all be together. Like it is like,
it's
especially
beautiful.
if we're gonna invade other countries still and like try to control them, like go ahead and embrace their culture like before you do that. And I don't know, it's just like to me it felt nice to be part of that. It was like a good message that I think will outlive whatever hate and anger was about it.
And for a group of people who are kind of beating the heteronormative drum, the fact that there was a straight wedding.
Yeah.
In the middle of like a real straight wedding in the middle of the Super Bowl is also just a funny little wrinkle.
Yeah, it was like so like not gay, except for the one part with the dudes grinding against each other, right?
Is a straight wedding more offensive than an old white guy in a fedora and jean shorts? Because personally, I find just aesthetically an old white guy in a fedora and jean shorts much more viscerally upsetting.
Jean shorts.
Wait, are you talking about Kid Rock?
Yes, he was wearing jean shorts.
Can't say I watched it.
He was wearing
the
jean
fedora
shorts.
is much more offensive.
He was wearing jean shorts in front of the country. It's like that. I mean, say what you will about.
We deserve an executive order about jean shorts for sure.
What do you mean? Are we anti-jorts? I feel like that should be pretty unified.
That was fired.
For an old man.
I was like, wait a minute. What? The fedora, I get.
Say what you will about
right.
Trump, but he does have some excellent tweets. And there's that one tweet about Barney Frank,
dude, I don't know.
where he's like, Barney Frank standing in front of Congress in his blue shirt, nipples protruding. It was disgusting. That's exactly how I felt about Kid Rock.
All right. Well, you enjoyed it?
I enjoyed it very, very much.
Yeah. Well, that's all we've got on that.
Our annual publication of A Parent's Guide to San Diego School is finally here.
It's here.
It's the moment.
Oh my God.
Yeah, like the
moment
actual
we've
copies
worked.
came to our desk.
They're here. They're on my desk.
And it doesn't appear to have any grievous errors.
Just wait a couple weeks.
There's something about print, like it is terrifying.
Oh,
Like,
terrifying.
Like you can't 40,000 or whatever, 50,000 copies we send out. You're not gonna redo that.
And it's our only print product.
Yeah.
Like, it has to be extra great.
Yeah.
Jacob almost gave me a heart attack because he was flipping through the pages, and I thought that one data set was attached to the wrong thing. And I was like, wait. No, he just was holding it weird. But
yeah, whenever I'm flipping it through it, I have like miniature heart attacks when I see something just out of the corner of my eye. I'm like, wait, what's that? What does that say?
Yeah.
Well, it's out. It's got some great stories. We got our first ever analysis of private schools, trying to get our minimally viable product out there and keep improving that. And it's just good. Like it's probably our best ever. What do you like about it?
I mean, I think the private school element is very cool. We've already had some other private school folks reaching out, clamoring to be in the guide and asking why they weren't. We in order to take a bite-sized chunk out of this, we only did private schools that were above 200 student enrollment. So figuring out how to make that better, figuring out how to evolve is part of the guide, and it's really exciting to see that we continue to evolve.
yeah, my favorite part is just having it all in one place.
Yeah.
I'm not a parent, but sometimes it can just feel so overwhelming to have to look at all these websites, but like having everything in one place and in a way that like makes sense and has helpful term guides and all of this stuff, like it's just, I think it's a great resource.
Yeah, it's by far our most like popular thing that people just clamor for and grab right away. You can get yours. You can download it at VOSD.org/schools. We'll of course have it in every public library. It'll go to preschools. I love it. I'm very proud. I love to look at our schools, right away. A lot of people do. I'm sure the school district, the principals all look right away to see how they look on there. But that's part of the value, right? The people get to look at it, see what and answer a bunch of questions, kind of handle this big thing in their life. But then also, like, it's really hard for some of these people to look at their schools and see, like, just awful disparities, underperformance, just things they need to address. And so we'll be working also on some new things, right?
Yeah, a couple notes here. We are launching something very uncharacteristic for Voice of San Diego, which is an awards ceremony for schools that do really well on this metric that we created in partnership with UCSD. And Will always gets really angry if I don't mention that he played a pivotal role in creating this. So, Will, I'm mentioning you.
Will Huntsberry.
Don't give me a dirty look. Don't mention his last name.
Sorry.
We can just keep it at Will.
There's other Wills in our VOSD world.
That's fine. So essentially this award ceremony is honoring schools that do really well on the income versus test score metric. One of the things that we've always been uncomfortable with when it comes to creating guides like this is how kind of black and white and without nuance some of these scores are. One of the things that we know very clearly is that schools that are wealthier do better on tests. And so we created this metric to be able to get an insight in a deeper look at how schools are doing outside of that all-important metric. So we've created an award ceremony that honors schools that are doing really well.
Yeah, so expect some stories about that too.
Yeah, and I did not juke the stats, I swear, but it turns out that my high school, Helix High School, is the top performing school in the county.
Yeah, you went back and
I did.
They call your name when you walked in, like Jacob.
We did take a look at the yearbooks that were sitting in the office, so that was quite something to see myself on those yearbooks. I also want to make one shout out here. When we release the guide every year, we do these workshops, and the goal of the workshops is to get this guide and to get that information in front of people who could use it, in front of parents, in front of folks who have kids, who care about kids. And we are always looking for organizations to partner with, organizations who are in the community doing work with families, folks who can help us, interface with the community members. So if that is you, if you work with an organization like this who can get 10 people, 15 people, I don't know, if you can get some people who could use this information in a room and that we can kind of blab at, reach out. We would love to hear from you. We would love to do something in your community.
Yeah, Jacob at voicesandiego.org.
Yep, Jakob at VOSD.org. Yeah, K.
Jakob.
It's always a little bit of a speed bump for people. But yes,
It's kind of radical. It's like
it is
a little edgy.
Yeah, a little bit. But again, we're excited. It's really impossible to overstate how much work Andrea does on this. She keeps everybody sane by sacrificing her own sanity. And so it's always a huge relief to get this thing out.
All right, check it out. Thank you. Again, you can download it at vosd.org/schools or find also some places there you might be able to pick one up. All right, we teased this a little bit, but you did come out with a video, Bella, about a weird intersection in San Diego. Tell us about it.
Yes. So we are talking about, there's a bunch of weird intersections in San Diego.
Yeah.
This is one that I just happen to pass through maybe 2 times a day, unfortunately. But it is the intersection of El Cajon Boulevard, Park Boulevard, and Normal Street.
Just the fact that there's 3 is a good indication that there's something going on.
Yeah, it's wrong. It's fundamentally wrong on so many levels. And I had been trying to think of video ideas that like would intersect with average San Diegans who maybe like don't follow the news as closely. And obviously something that was close to my life that I am plagued by every day is this intersection that is so strange. There's like 3 different streets. There's a bus only lane. There's like bike lanes and stuff now. It's just like an absolute disaster. But this realization happened to sync up with the timing of the discussions about redeveloping the San Diego Unified Headquarters, which is on the west side of that intersection. So there's going to be 1,500 new homes for educators being built there in the next handful of years. And so they're going to be forced to do something about this intersection. I talked to the developer and he said it's a huge part of making this project successful is figuring out how to make that intersection safe and accessible to people. And that is the complete opposite of what it is right now.
Don't you love crossover events when the bits of coverage that we're doing merge?
Yeah. Well, I think if you do see a weird intersection in San Diego, often it is because there used to be a streetcar running through it, right? And in this case, that's part of what contributed to it.
Yeah, there's a bunch of stuff. It's a lot of like typical San Diego stuff. I mean, the streetcar used to run through here. This is right on the cusp of University Heights, which if you look at the University Heights sign, it is a streetcar. And so that whole area was kind of like built around public transportation. And then you have the end of El Cajon Boulevard, which then skews southwest at this intersection because you have canyons kind of in the distance. So if you look at a map, El Cajon Boulevard is just this like beautiful straight line that goes like straight through mid-city. And then it gets to this intersection. It's like, yeah. And if you look, there's like canyons down the way. So it couldn't just like keep going straight.
Well, they could have just stopped.
It could have just stopped. There's like other things that they could have done, but they wanted to keep going. They wanted to connect it to the 163. And so, my kind of conclusion was that over the years, this intersection is very much ebbed and flowed to like the changes of transportation. You have the streetcar, and then you have El Cajon Boulevard becoming this like center of car culture, and it becomes very car centric. And now we're kind of trying to backtrack by installing these like bus only lanes and these bike lanes and making it very like pedestrian, cyclist friendly, on top of all of this like very car centric infrastructure. And then the area around it is growing a lot. So it's just like this intersection that's been there for a long time that has kind of outgrown its original form and tried to like adapt into something more modern, and has just become like a complete nightmare in the process, and just frankly needs to be like fully reimagined.
I've only been able to get through that intersection because I've been blessed every time I have to be there, someone else is in front of me. So I just say, okay, wherever that person in front of me is going,
that'll get you in trouble sometimes.
Well, yeah, I mean, people in the comments say that other people are being over dramatic. I'm like, okay, well, sure, like you figured out how to drive through the intersection, like good for you. We can never underestimate drivers in America especially. But also, I was there filming. I went to the intersection for various videos over the last couple of months, like 5 or 6 times. And I've witnessed like so many near accidents just like standing there.
Well, and then you pointed out that like several cars have driven into the dog park that's right there. Like,
I mean, somebody was killed at that intersection a couple of years ago, walking to his job at Cheers. I mean, there's been numerous like cyclist accidents. The dog park, like I would personally not feel very safe bringing my dog there. I don't have one, but if I did, I probably would not bring the dog there because it's like very clearly unsafe. And that's exactly where all of these apartments are supposed to go. So I imagine that they're going to need to figure that out to, design it in such a way where cars are not constantly ramming into the property.
Ideally.
Yeah, I don't know. That might be a tall order.
All right, check that out at one of the vertical video sites, the TikTok,
Instagram.
the Gram.
YouTube
Everything's a vertical video site now.
It's true. LinkedIn even.
Oh no!
Yeah.
Those are the last people I want to be watching vertical videos from.
You will not see me on there, rest assured.
Just somebody.
It's the only good social media site.
Just somebody holding a little mic talking about B2B marketing. Get out of here.
It's the only thing where people say interesting things, I think.
Okay, Mr. CEO.
The Republican Party of San Diego used to be kind of a big deal. They would have these big events, like debates. All their people would be crowded into the conference room of the Town and Country Resort or that Legacy Resort in Mission Valley. Like they were like, it was kind of a big deal. They don't seem to be doing those kinds of things lately. Their meetings are mostly closed, very small group. And they had another meeting on Monday. They met at the Awakened Church now. That's where they've landed in Kearney Mesa.
You told me this yesterday, and I still cannot believe it.
Can you not?
I mean, I guess I can.
It's just the most blatant version of this that we have ever seen.
Yeah, well, Awaken's gotten much more political since the pandemic, right?
This is supposed to be against the law.
Right.
Well, they could. I don't know if that's true. Like, can they just rent out their facilities? Like,
did the Republican Party pay for it?
I don't know.
That's actually something we should
Well,
look
I
into.
mean, aren't they broke?
Yeah. I
The
don't,
whole thing is-
well,
Let him get into it.
Sorry.
Given Awaken's infrastructure, though, they probably have like the capacity for Carl DeMaio to come in, on a dolly or a lift, strings from the ceiling.
Yeah, float in.
Like
I bet he'd
wouldn't
enjoy
doubt
that.
if he's done that.
Yeah.
They're like fireworks.
So Carl DeMaio is the de facto leader of the party, even though he's not an elected officer. He's in the Central Committee as an ex officio, as an elected official. But he is overwhelmingly just assumed and accepted as the leader of the party.
Carl the Messiah.
Hey, there you go.
He's an assembly member.
Yes, he's an assembly member. So they met on Monday to consider some important endorsements, in particular two. Brian Jones, the senator in the sort of northeastern county area, he is termed out. He's leaving, and it's a pretty even seat, slight Democratic advantage, but the Republicans can still win it. Mara Elliott, former city attorney at the city of San Diego, is running for that seat. Remember her? Yeah, she's doing that. Then there's two main Republicans running. So Ed Musgrove, a city councilman at the city of San Marcos, and Christy Bruce Lane, who's run for assembly and a few other spots, and is a very tight ally with Carl DeMaio. So that was, who do they choose? That city councilman or Carl's favorite was one of the races that they were going to weigh in on, maybe. The other is the race to replace Jim Desmond, the supervisor in the north part of San Diego County, one of 5 supervisors, one of 2 Republicans. Still, again, the Republicans' best chance on the county, although, again, that district is also getting tight as well. And so Republicans have a pretty good chance there. There's a guy named John Franklin running for that seat as well. And then, of course, Rebecca Jones, the mayor of San Marcos. She's interested in that, and she's the one that Carl DeMaio supports. So they got to this meeting Monday, and they decided they couldn't endorse. And Carl worked really hard to make sure that they didn't endorse in that race. And there was a lot of fighting, a lot of yelling, a lot of weird discussions going on, from what I can gather about it. And now it's turned into a little bit of a thing. So Corey Gustafson, who Carl DeMaio who got pushed out of the party out of the leadership of the party by Carl DeMaio, he wrote an op-ed for us this week. And he said that this is all part of the plan, all part of DeMaio's plan. He said him and DeMaio's sort of chosen delegates on the Central Committee, this is what they want, is for them to not endorse. Quote, they've advocated for no endorsement policy that strips the party of its most powerful tool in primary elections. This policy is as strategic as it is hypocritical. While Reform California is Carl DeMaio's political action committee. He gets to decide there, and they send out endorsements and voter guides and all that stuff, right? And he gets to decide all of that. So Reform California is still doing its endorsements. So while Reform California makes endorsements in nearly every race, the party is silenced, giving DeMaio's endorsements free rein. The formula is simple. The weaker the party, the stronger Reform California becomes. So there's a little bit of a thing going on in the Republican Party. And of course, Voice of San Diego is the place to follow it.
Well, I mean, nobody else really seems to care about
I know,
Republican
right?
politics
Except
anymore.
for us.
I know. I'm
We're
always
like, check out these guys.
Yeah. I'm always the interested in what's happening. I think a functional, normal Republican Party would be, a valuable part of the political sphere. Now, we'll see if we can get there, but it doesn't seem like DeMaio wants that.
Yeah. This is the first time they've issued no endorsements?
So it's going to be the first time it looks like they won't put out a voter guide. They do that every, election going back as far as I can remember. And so the parties have an advantage and that other, entities don't have, which is that they can spend unlimited amounts of money on what's called member communication. So if you're a registered Republican, you can, you're as a voter, you can get mailers, and all kinds of things that say like, here's what the Republican Party wants you to do. And the other thing is that candidates can coordinate with the parties to make sure that message is what they want. Like if there's an independent expenditure, candidates are supposed to stay like arm's length away. They're not supposed to talk to them about what they're doing, who they're targeting, what messages they're sending. But with a party, you can be like, okay, you're going to reach those people, you're going to say these things, and you're going to get this money from this donor to do it. And like that is a very powerful tool. And so what's basically happening is the party is abandoning that advantage in favor of DeMaio's chosen route. So it's a really interesting development in that world. And the party's out of money, it looks like. It's like just scraping by and just, not gonna be doing what it used to be doing.
How did the Republican Party get so down bad? I mean, I imagine Carl DeMaio was like kind of preying on a downfall that was already kind of manifesting.
Well, I think, there's sort of a couple of things. Obviously, Trump is not popular in San Diego overall. Like he got a little bounce in 2024, but in general, he's a pretty unwelcome brand in many parts of San Diego, and that has hurt them. They've had a lot of people leave. Just this week, one of the longest serving elected officials in San Diego left the party for the Democrats.
El Cajon council member.
Yeah, one of the longest serving elected officials in San Diego County, El Cajon council member Gary Kendrick, just left the party this week. And Corey Gustafson writes about him in the op-ed that he sent us about yet another sign of this sort of decline. And I think that, Nathan Fletcher left the party, Mark Kersey left the party, a former city council member. The district attorney, Summer Stephan, left the party. Brian Mainshine left the party. All these people left the party. And then it also lost this sort of professional infrastructure. Like it used to be that the Republicans were the professional political apparatus in San Diego, and the Democrats were like the more activist-y, right? There was obviously professionals in the Democratic coalition, labor and plaintiffs' attorneys and stuff, but the Republicans had like this like bevy of just professional fundraisers and consultants and stuff. And I think over the last 15 years, that just completely flipped. Like the Republicans are the activist-y group. There's very few Republican consultants now. And that class of professionals either left the party and went to the Democrats or left San Diego in general, or they became like quasi-independents, but mostly like went to the Democrats. They're like, they saw the writing, like, okay, the people in charge now are the Democrats. We're going to go ahead and say we're Democrats now. And I think that's just like everything just sort of, and all the fundraising then switched as well. Like if you wanted to have power and such, you had to influence the Democrats, and builders and stuff started participating more in who's going to be the Democrat that gets elected as opposed to like supporting the alternative.
So you're saying that instead of actual Republicans, we just have a bunch of Democrats that are functionally Republicans?
I think no, I think in a way they're more like business centric for sure. Like there's definitely like Vivian Moreno, right? In District 8. She was a very like business friendly Democrat, builder friendly, but she's obviously not on board with a lot of like the like branding anti-woke stuff or whatever. So I don't know. So it was really interesting to see. And so Gustafson says that if DeMaio is allowed to continue this, then the decline is going to continue. Now, DeMaio is a big fan of Voice San Diego and our offerings, but has not yet weighed in on this debate.
Well, just very grateful to have his support.
I just love this. I love when you ask for something from a government agency and they say no, and then you get it. So tell us about your experience with that.
Well, and to be clear, they didn't just say no. They said it did not exist.
Yeah.
So anybody who's been reading my work or listening to the podcast knows that I've been digging into enrollment decline, not just at San Diego Unified, but countywide for months now. This is essentially a system-wide crisis for school districts everywhere, based on declining birth rates and the high cost of living chasing families out. Schools all around are just losing kids by a lot. I mean, there is a huge decline, and it's projected to get even worse as the years go on. Given all of this, I was very curious what San Diego Unified's capacity looked like. Essentially, how many of the kids that they can fit in each school are actually going to those schools.
Yeah, because the core question is, if you lose enrollment, eventually you might have to start talking about school closures.
Yes.
And so where are we with schools' capacity? And it was a very simple question.
It was a very simple question. And back in October, I got my first answer, which was,
no idea.
No idea. Yeah, so I wrote this story, San Diego Unified doesn't know how many kids each school can fit, based on what they told me, which is that they did not have the staff to essentially create these capacity documents at scale. They were able to do one-off as needed, capacity determinations based on what schools were going to get a whole site modernization or whatever it was, but they did not have a document or anybody who was working on creating a district-wide capacity determination, which seems pretty important if you're going to actually start to counter this enrollment decline before you get to the point of doing the single most unpopular thing you can do as a school district, which is close schools. So I wrote this piece. I kept doing some digging, did some public records requests. All of it returned the same answer.
We don't documents know. No idea.
Not only do we not know, but we could not know. We do not create these documents. It would be impossible for us to figure it out. Lo and behold, I ended up obtaining one of these documents, the last one that was created in 2023, that looked at, and had been created for many, many years prior to that looked at how many kids each school can fit. And it showed that a whole lot of San Diego Unified schools are pretty empty. One of the questions that I asked when I got this document was, does San Diego Unified have definitions for what it means for a school to be under-enrolled, right? Is there a threshold where San Diego Unified can look at a school and say, that school it has a worryingly few number of kids compared to how many we can fit? They do not. So I had to rely on a definition created by Chicago Public Schools, which has dealt with this enrollment decline and under-enrolled schools for a long time, which basically stipulates that if a school is serving fewer than 70% of the kids that it could fit, it is underutilized. Based on that determination, just about half of San Diego Unified schools are underutilized, meaning just about half of San Diego Unified schools are at less than 70% capacity.
And then it gets a little worse, too. 16% of schools, 27 schools, are less than half full. You have a table in there with a whole list of the least full schools, is one way to put it. Montgomery Elementary School, 31%.
Yeah, that school has capacity for 1,105 students, and in 24-25 only had 337 enrolled.
Kimbrough, 34%. Yeah. Lafayette Elementary, 37%. Of the schools that are less than half full, the average enrollment decline of those schools was 28% over 10 years, which it doesn't take a lot of math skills to look at that trend. And if you keep losing 28% over a decade, you're going to be down to very few students in some of these schools very soon.
And important to note, the schools that were at the lowest capacity were also experienced disproportionate enrollment decline, right? So district-wide, San Diego Unified lost about 12% of students. At these schools, the district lost way more. I mean, like you said, the average was 28%. We're seeing enrollment declines at schools like this of 29, 30, 53%, which are just really, really incredible bits of enrollment decline. Now, there are a whole bunch of asterisks here. This was a report that was created in the year 23-24, forecasting towards the next year. And so it's important to understand that. The district itself says that these essentially calculations can be difficult or misleading, which, okay, fine, but then why did you create this for a decade? And so it is. All that being said, though, it is an insight into what this district is dealing with that not only is very important for everybody to see, but that the superintendent hadn't been given.
Yeah, this is the best part of your story. So Boyce wasn't the only one who hadn't been presented the data despite asking questions about enrollment decline, capacity, and school choice. San Diego Unified School District said she also had not seen this.
Yeah, Superintendent Fabiola Bagula.
Quote, I didn't ask, can I have this report, but I would say, can I have data about this? Can I have data about that? And I did not receive this. It is my expectation that executives have this information and are able to answer my questions when I ask them. What?
What is a very good question here. It's very clear since coming in as superintendent, taking over for Lamont Jackson, who was fired, Fabi has been extremely frustrated with the level of data, the kind of data that she's been able to get, what data has been presented to her. She has brought in new people to form a new data team. And I think this is one very important facet of how frustrated she is with this data stuff. All that being said, the fact that she was not given this data, the fact that the district denied in a public records request that this existed, is, to me, a very, very worrying indication of how serious they are about figuring out how to counteract enrollment decline on the front end, again, before they have to get to this horrible potential place where they have to close schools.
Can you remind us again, what we know about why enrollment is declining, and particularly in some of these pockets you've identified with the status set?
Yeah, so what's interesting too, I did a bunch of stories about enrollment decline, a bunch of stories about where kids are choosing to go to school. Those maps, if you overlay them, basically look exactly the same. The places where capacity is lowest are the places where enrollment has declined the most. The places that enrollment has declined the most are the places where parents are choicing their kids out of. So it all dovetails into one messy sort of stew. But when it comes to enrollment decline in particular, the two things that seem the clearest, and it's difficult because these are ecosystems, right? These are things that are playing upon each other. But the two things that seem to be playing an outsized role are one, the fact that birth rates have declined a whole lot, and the fact that San Diego is so damn expensive and it's just kind of chasing young families away. You put these two things together, and the solution, or the simple cause of enrollment decline is not necessarily that more people are choosing to go to private schools, more people are choosing to go to charter schools, whatever it is. It's just that there are straight up fewer kids in San Diego.
And what's real, there's two big, sticky, weird issues here that make this really interesting. One is that the school district continues to spend billions of dollars rebuilding or modernizing or building new facilities at these school sites. And so there doesn't appear to be any correlation between this discussion and where that investment's occurring. And I think there's a chance that's on purpose, that they're avoiding this discussion because of the ongoing, construction and investment and the massive amounts of money that are going out there, that they don't want to mess that up. And like, that may sound cynical, but I don't know why else they're hiding from that data and from the discussion. The second one that's super sticky is what you referenced there, that a lot of these schools are losing kids. Not just there's fewer kids in there, but they're losing them to other schools. If we do start to get to a discussion about closing schools, there's going to be a really awful discussion going about which ones, because the places where there's fewer kids are overwhelmingly in the more wealthy areas, that people cannot move their families into the coastal neighborhoods.
And enrollment decline at those schools is basically masked by the fact that families from other areas are choicing their kids in. So there are fewer kids there. And if you look at the neighborhood participation rates, you see that there are declines in the grade appropriate students within those boundaries. But again, as you're saying, kids from Lincoln or from, Rodriguez Elementary or anywhere kind of south of the 8, and especially south of the 94, are moving their kids to La Jolla.
So you get into that. If that starts coming and there's a discussion about it, you're going to have coastal neighborhoods that are going to fiercely and very politically powerfully protect their schools, because closing a school in a neighborhood is one of the most traumatic things you can do. And so they're going to fight, and they're going to have political power to avoid that. And yet the demographics underneath it are going to point to them being the more likely place for it. But they also have probably a record of success and stuff that they're going to be able to point to. It is going to be a bad, ugly, difficult discussion. And it is unconscionable that they are not talking about it at the district leadership level. It is just hideous that they aren't facing it, and they're just it's like a pension debt or something that they're passing on to future leaders to deal with, and they should be absolutely shamed for not engaging it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that to be fair, there is some talk of enrollment decline, but a lot of it, I feel like has not even close to reach the level of sort of like seriousness that is required by this. Second, the fact that they don't have this data or are not producing this data anymore also is just truly baffling. A lot of it, I do believe that, they no longer have the staff to create these kinds of documents, partially because, they did these big layoffs to the central office staff while continuing to, prioritize classroom staff, which I think we can all agree that teachers should be in the classroom, but that's a zero-sum game. At a certain point, for every job you save over here, you're losing a job over here. And sometimes it's easy to say the central office staff is overpaid and we need to get rid of these folks so that we can keep teachers in the classroom. That's okay, but you're losing people who are doing some pretty important work over here. So they no longer have folks who are doing this stuff on a district-wide level. They no longer have a full-time demographer.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
and school districts were always seen as the best demographers because they could they had to figure out where enrollment would be, where schools would be needing more teachers, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. In any case, these are conversations that I've been having for months now with district leaders, and I've been assured time and time again that they are taking this very seriously and they're working to try to prepare for this on the front end. I don't necessarily know that I'm convinced, but I'm going to keep reporting on it.
So I think one thing about all this ICE discussion around the country and whatever has been going on, especially in Minnesota, I think people miss that it wasn't just that they were doing immigration enforcement as they've done, or, a lot of people are like, hey, you weren't protesting during Obama's term. Well, there was something different that happened in Minnesota that's happened in other cities as well, in Charlotte, in Maine, in Chicago, these surges. They always come up with these names for them, right, where they literally send not just ICE agents, but actual Border Patrol and, all kinds of DHS employees and agents to an area to surge the enforcement there, to make a big show of it on purpose, that was part of it. And the reason they went to Minnesota unquestionably was because of a video that had come out done by a YouTuber named Nick Shirley about widespread fraud alleged widespread fraud in child care facilities in Minnesota. Now, there had been prosecutions of fraud, a lot of it within the Somali community in Minnesota years before, and they, he came in and basically went to these childcare facilities and said, like, there's no childcare happening, obviously massive fraud. That went viral. It went huge. The president saw it and immediately directed one of these surges there. And that's where all of that sort of originated. And then that same YouTuber, to San Diego, and you guys sort of picked up from there what he was doing.
Yeah, so Will Huntsberry and I really, with this piece we wrote, tried to answer a couple questions. We tried to answer, what did Nick Shirley actually find in Minneapolis and Minnesota, if anything, and what would it take to make the claims, to truthfully make the claims that he made in Minnesota here. We found a couple different things, and it's all very messy. Our goal here was to take this seriously and to try to, for lack of a better phrase, kind of inoculate people to what could end up being a very sort of breathless, potentially misleading bit of content if what he produced in Minnesota is any guide. Ultimately, what we found is what many reporters found, and even investigators found when they went back and did his homework and checked his homework on the Minnesota video, which is that at best, what he found was sort of smoke that did not at all prove that there was this kind of fire of fraud that he claimed there was, and at worst, very misleading. He went to a bunch of Somali-owned daycares and claimed, because they would not let a random man with a camera in who was accompanied by a bunch of masked dudes, that because they wouldn't let him in to see kids, that there were no kids there. And not only that there were no kids there, but there had never been any kids there. And every dollar that these child care facilities had received was completely fraudulent. After his video came out, reporters, state investigators visited many of these child care facilities, and in many of these cases found perfectly normal, functioning child care facilities. Now, one of the reasons that his video was so persuasive, I think, to some people, is that there is actually a history of fraud in social services in Minneapolis, not only coming out of the pandemic, but also in child care facilities in particular. There have been deficiencies identified within that system that do, at times, potentially allow for fraud to occur. But that fraud would look very, very different than what Nick Shirley described in his video. And when he came here, our goal was to kind of take that information in and better understand exactly what it would mean to commit fraud in San Diego. And what we found is that
the core of the fraud is the idea of, like, some people qualify for, subsidized child care. If you provide that child care, you have to sign with that person and with the provider that you're getting it, and then the subsidy comes to the child care provider.
Mm-hmm, yeah, state and federal subsidized dollars, yeah.
And the idea was that was happening, and yet no child care was actually occurring.
Yes.
So you have to, A, prove they got the money, and then B, prove that nothing was happening to deliver those services.
Which, again, I mean, in order to prove that, it requires a pretty intense investigation, not just some, jabronis showing up with a camera and banging on a door.
Yeah.
That's just not how it works. And some of the places that they showed up to were closed because they were for second shift workers, or again, I mean, they were dudes showing up with cameras demanding to see kids. If I had a kid and, somebody showed up with a camera demanding to see my kid at their childcare, and that childcare provider let them in, I personally would be furious. So there are a whole bunch of understandable reasons why they were not escorted very kindly into the room where a bunch of children were.
Yeah. Like a state investigator would,
yeah,
right?
Exactly, yeah. So turning our eye on to San Diego, Nick Shirley visited here alongside, sort of influencer, failed Republican political candidate extraordinaire, Amy Reichert, who after Shirley's video came out kind of took up the mantle and began to scour state records for what could be fraud here. They visited a number of Somali-owned daycare facilities in San Diego, at which Amy found. They visited a bunch of Somali-owned daycare facilities here that Amy had found in state records, had been visited by regulators, and had kids who were supposedly enrolled, but when regulators visited, did not have any kids there.
Which, again, there's two parts to the scam, supposedly. Yeah. One, getting the money. Mm-hmm. So there's nothing in there that indicates they got money. And then B, not serving the kids. And, yeah, there are no kids there, but you don't know, like, if they're just not functioning or if they're night workers or just whatever.
That's a really, really important element of this. In Minnesota, they actually had much more information than they had here. In Minnesota, one of the sort of like political gadfly that Nick Shirley went around with had the numbers, had the funding that each of these childcare providers had. So they were able to go to these places and say, bang on the door, there are no kids here, but this place got $1 million. Here, They did not even have those funds. And
now, there was a scam like that in San Diego a few years ago. The UMI Learning Center, the guys operating it pled guilty. Mm-hmm. It's 27 months in prison, $3.7 million fine. So it's not, again, proving that, though, requires all those things to come together.
Yes. And that scandal actually essentially was exactly kind of how this fraud would have worked, right? They had families register. Those families then would check in. I mean, this is how this stuff works, right? In order to defraud the state and defraud the feds out of this, you need essentially to be in partnership with families, which is pretty rare, but did in this one instance take place in San Diego. So, like in Minnesota, many of these things, regardless of how misleading or how, sensationalized they may be, all of these things, conspiracies, are best built on like one little kernel of truth. And that is what happened in Minnesota. And we are yet to see exactly what Nick Shirley and Amy Reichert will release in San Diego. But it's very possible that they will release something that claims the same sort of widespread fraud that they inaccurately claimed was happening at these childcare facilities they visited in Minnesota. All that being said, there are real people behind these childcare facilities. We spoke to one who talked to us about how not only was it a really frightening thing to have, Nick Shirley and Amy Reichert and some other folks bang on her door in San Diego, but that after Nick Shirley's initial video in Minnesota, she'd gotten, what she perceived to be as pretty intimidating texts, photos of Somali Minnesota Congresswoman Ilhan Omar in handcuffs, emojis of eyes, sort of in her mind indicating that people were watching her. And in addition to that, at least one person showing up demanding to see kids in the same way that Nick Shirley did. And so while I think it's understandable to have suspicions in some very, very specific instances, the fraud that he claims to have uncovered would not look like the fraud that he says he uncovered. And in addition to that, it's really important for everybody to take a breath and approach these things with a heavy dose of skepticism.
And clearly in Minnesota, there was this kind of like perfect storm of things that happened to create the ice surge and everything that came out of it that we witnessed. And it doesn't seem like all of those elements are like fully playing out here. Obviously, this is very speculative, but I mean, do we think that this could eventually result in a surge like what happened in Minneapolis?
I mean, it's hard to tell. You would hope not, because that surge led to, multiple American citizens being shot dead in the streets by federal agents. It led to what a lot of citizens believe are just like the wholesale trampling of their rights, dragging them out in their underwear from their homes. But this is the kind of city that the Trump organization or the Trump administration has targeted. This is a blue city with a heavily immigrant population, and it has the added sort of optics benefit, I would imagine, of being a border city. And even today, we have heard that Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem is visiting the Otay Mesa Detention Center. So I think that it's far too early to say with any degree of certainty exactly what comes from this. but it's not at all far too early to tell people to be aware, to know how to deal with this information, and again, to take a deep breath and treat it with, as you would anything on the internet, with a degree of suspicion.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of interesting points. One about the surges, like there's something about not being in a border city that is kind of characterizing these areas that are getting these surges. Charlotte, Chicago, Minnesota. These are places. I think there's a sort of magnetism effect where there's like, if there's already a ton of border patrol in an area, maybe they're not getting these surges. Now, I'm not saying that we're immune or whatever. I'm just saying it's probably harder for them to like send a bunch of border patrol agents to a place that's like literally like got everyone everywhere. So that's one part. But the other part is about journalism. There's nothing I love more, and there's no high better than exposing fraud. We as an organization would not exist if we hadn't, done some great work exposing fraud in the early years and ongoing. And I think, but what's hard is like you've got to do a lot of things to do that. You have to confront the people that you've found the information on and talk to them about it. You have to have bulletproof evidence. You have to talk to a lawyer to make sure you can credibly accuse the people you're accusing of without, violating libel laws and stuff like that. You have to like go through and it's laborious, it's difficult. Sometimes stories die on the vine. There's a bunch of stories we haven't actually finished because they just couldn't meet that standard. And so it's hard to watch this new generation come out and be like, oh, you can just throw it all out there and, leave the impression that there's all this fraud and not do all that work. And but that's what you need to be looking for. Did they confront the people? Do they have the receipts? Do they have the proof that they got the money and that they didn't deliver the service? That's what makes it hard to do. What takes all that time. And so, it's a wild. There's a lot of good things about what the internet did for journalism. I think there's a lot of like really weird stuff out there. So, I'd be very interested to see how that video, if it does drop. It's been interesting. Obviously, he's held it on longer than we might have anticipated. We'll see what he's doing to do with it, but that'll be what to watch for.
In an era of blind, sort of partisan, ideological sort of allegiance, one of the scariest things to think is that none of that matters anymore.
Well,
Proof.
Look, it's not like it's a new thing. Like Michael Moore made a whole career out of stuff like this from in the 90s.
He was funny at least.
He was funny and entertaining, and so it's just so easy. You had to go to a theater literally to watch his stuff. Like now, it's just like bang, it's out there on the most viral platforms that have ever existed. But we'll stay tuned. Thank you. Thanks for listening to the Voice San Diego podcast, the most popular public affairs podcast recorded in San Diego, Greater Little Italy, for who knows how long. The most popular public affairs podcast recorded in Greater Little Italy, for who knows how long. Or maybe we are going to expand the definition of Greater Little Italy. Who knows? I'm Scott Lewis, CEO and editor-in-chief at Voice San Diego. Bella Ross is our social media producer. Jakob McWhinney is our education reporter. And Andrea Sanchez Villafana is the managing editor. Matt Scraby is the producer of the show. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you next week.